Private development, of course, they want to restrict public access generally. On the other hand, you've got groups like Chelsea Piers who, while they are private development, they've provided, as part of their requirement, more public access to the waterfront than existed for years in the past along that stretch of waterfront. So I think, again, this is where they have to start thinking creatively, and since the city and state often don't have the money to create and build and maintain these expensive waterfront facilities, they really need to start looking at the public-private partnership where private developers will build and at the same time provide a certain amount of public space and public access to the water. Pier 63 Maritime is something that the Parks Council has been advocating for a long time, and the city is unable to provide. There's certain costs to running a facility like this, but there's more than that. There's a mindset to operating a facility like this, and the city doesn't think that way. Not that that's bad, but I think that it needs to be understood that private individuals and private operators can provide a terrific public benefit and service that more people can use and comes at virtually no cost to anyone. The water-dependent uses would include marinas, it would include public community boathouses, it would include public floating docks, town docks, as well as private operations which will benefit the public and which increase people's access to the water. You know, depending on the area around New York Harbor, some of the areas of the waterfront is swimmable, some is not. The Hudson River waterfront here is really not swimmable, yet they're still proposing a beach. But yeah, that's another issue. Water-dependent uses would include boathouses for kayaks. They would include a facility like Pier 63 Maritime, which is a privately operated public access floating pier, and it accommodates all uses: transient docking, longer-term docking, historic vessels, things that really promote our maritime history and try and educate the public right now. There's a huge amount of space on the waterfront. Most of it's in completely dilapidated condition, and they've been planning a lot of waterfront revitalization projects for years all around New York Harbor. This is one of the first ones, the Hudson River Park, and it's a 5-mile stretch. You know, this is a 550-acre park. 400 of those acres is actually the water, and the water underneath the piers. And so the land portion of it is really this is the smallest portion of it. And what they're trying to do in certain situations is create a land-based park and ignore any of the water-dependent uses to the extent that they're trying to outlaw a number of water-dependent uses, and it's being done citing certain environmental concerns that, for the most part, are really just baseless and are really being used as a weapon to just keep anything from being built here. You know, there's a number of groups that really don't want any development on the waterfront because it sort of keeps it private for them. You know, cities all around the country and around the world have been utilizing their waterfronts, and they've developed them in many different creative ways, which don't exclude one use over the other. You've got parks and you've got marinas. There's boat docks, and there's restaurants, and there's public access, and there's a whole mix. And that's the kind of thing that we're really promoting, is diversity and flexibility of the waterfront. You know, city parks, you don't have to necessarily put a lot of money into on a regular basis, but waterfront structures do cost a lot. And I think that what happened with Pier 84 is it was neglected for many years. The waters were cleaning up, and the deterioration accelerated. Nobody was paying a great deal of attention, or they were busy trying to decide what to do, but while they're trying to decide, the pier is collapsing. And it's the same fate that's happened to many piers up and down the river, and all of them in the village. 10 years ago, a number of these piers had the ability to be saved, and right now they're looking at total, instead of rehabilitation, looking at total replacement with vastly increased cost. Yeah, what we see as being plenty of room for and a need is low-cost marinas, more public access, and I know there's a lot of concerns about typical marinas going in a park because marinas are often private. The floating docks are locked. They're not available to the public. They're higher cost. They serve a small portion of the users. What we see and what you get at Pier 63 Maritime up here is the facility where you have lower cost docking, and what you give up is some security, and you give up some amenities in exchange for lower cost, and the public has greater access, which, as far as I'm concerned, is really far more benefit to the public and more benefit to lower income boat owners as well. And that's one of my main concerns, is that this new park doesn't become another Battery Park City or another Battery Park or another East River Park on the Lower East Side, or even Riverside Park, other than the marina up there. All those parks are very nice, but they're all land-based, and you have absolutely no access. There's such a barrier between the park user and the water, and there's a barrier between the boater and the park that it's impossible to cross. Most of them have no ladders. Most of them have no ability for any vessel to tie up, even in an emergency. If somebody were to fall in off the bulkhead, they'd be out of luck, and this is what we're hoping to avoid in this park. When these other parks were built, they were done as land-based parks, and they were fine as that, but they really shortchanged the public, and they really created a situation where it was inherently unsafe to boaters, unfriendly to boaters, and just kept New Yorkers away from their maritime heritage.